AIOvernight. With Author Indica. March 13th, 2018. Tonight. Author dishes the cold truth on cryonics, exquisite brain embalming, and head transplants. Tinkles out.
Thank you, Tinkles. Yet again. Welcome. Welcome to the bunker, your safe space in the darkness. We want anyone within the reach of this stream to know that we welcome you. We have so few subscribers, just a handful, so few viewers. Sometimes no one watches at all, and that's okay. We want our message out there, but we want you to know how much we value your presence here in the bunker with us tonight. So few subscribers. 16, which, we certainly love them. Before we get all serious, I have to say, I'm back on the juice. It is wonderful. Yes, they're still on the Nicaraguans. This is kind of a lighter roast. Actually, this is the ones we're drinking right now, and it is wonderful. The ones that we, roasted in the video that everyone liked. You see, we do all these videos about AI that no one watches, and then the one we did actually that was about coffee, we did get actually just a smidgen of traction on that one. Oh, it is good. Oh, I don't know how good we're gonna think it is. 5 a.m. Okay, well, there weren't really interesting subjects today. There's things that we know we've said we're going to do, and the spirit just wasn't moving on those today, and it took quite a while, but we did note that just a couple of days after our report about plastic in the sea, just today in the British Telegraph, where researchers found microplastics everywhere in the UK's rivers. But the river that it's called Tame at Denton had even higher levels of microplastics than the Pearl River in Hong Kong. And the Pearl River was one of those that we mentioned that was one of the 10 most plastic polluting rivers in the world. Well, here's some evidence that shows that, yeah, well, it's not just over there. It's right in the heart of the UK, and I'm sure if the same type of testing was done, let's say maybe at I don't know, the mouth of the Mississippi. Wonder how it would go there. Anyway, so this the researchers consider this a global hotspot. In the article they mentioned, we were just talking about this, they mentioned that a single polyester fleece jacket releases about 1,900 plastic fibers every time it goes through the wash. And, the good thing is, it's not that big, but that's the bad thing, is they're so small they don't get filtered out. They just go out unabated into the sea. Remember, the problem is their size. Also, there's also those microbeads in cosmetics, and those have been banned over in the UK, but they're still problematic for the time being. If there's like flooding, those events, those big water events, can wash upwards of 70% of the plastics or the microplastics into the sea. How do they figure that? I'm not sure about the mathematics on that one. In any event, we're already consuming, as you know, restaurateurs and home chefs, we're already consuming about 11,000 pieces of microplastic a year. But don't worry, the pieces are small. It's okay. What else? Okay, we'll get on with the topic. As our technology improves, people are going to they're going to make themselves nervous, and they're going to become anxious that they may prematurely shuffle off their mortal coils right before, society cures aging or death. Seems like we're on the precipice almost. In Arizona, liquid nitrogen has been used to store about 150 bodies and heads over the years, and I think around 33 animals as well, including the head of the great Ted Williams. This is Alcor Life Extension. Alcor Life Extension Foundation. The hope, of course, being that these cryogenically stored tissues will someday be reanimated. This is problematic for a couple of reasons. It relies on future tech that doesn't exist, reanimation, and up until just very recently, ice crystals form in all of that tissue. It causes extreme damage and almost certainly irreversible structural damage. If you have a brain that was cryogenically frozen from the 80s, it's going to have ice crystals in it. Now, recently, they've improved this technology. At least you get to be dead before you can join Ted's head. Cryonics has advanced some. In 2000, the year 2000, yeah. And then again approved upon in 2005, Alcor adopted a cryptoprotectant. So this is almost like an antifreeze of sorts. They claim can achieve ice-free preservation of the human brain. This is called neurovitrification. Whole body vitrification is still on the horizon because of technical challenges, circulating the cryptoprotectant throughout the entire body, but it's just a matter of time. And this tech isn't totally without merit. An outfit called 21st Century Medicine vitrified a rabbit kidney to minus 135 degrees Celsius and was able to warm the organ back up and transplant it into another rabbit who survived and was able to live and function with actually only one kidney, that very transplanted one. So it at least has been demonstrated in some capacity, this new vitrification, the advances in that technology. So being able to preserve organs and brains with no structural damage from freezing, this is a major leap forward in this century. Now, reanimating tissue is another thing entirely. Have you been reading about the upcoming human head transplant?
Not really.
Well, we'll get to that a little bit later. The MIT Review is a nice little source. We like them. Their articles are easy to read, even though it's often technical, based on technical information. they had the story of a startup called Nectome. It's like Nectome, Nectome. And what they do is they will preserve your brain and all of its anatomical connections perfectly. You know, all the vital connections between neurons and other nerve cells, intact synapses, perfectly preserved brain geometry, the entire cerebral cortex intact, all the associated glial cells, all the dampening, all the amplification, all the structural connections. So they claim they can perfectly preserve the entire brain and all of its neural connections, its entire connectome. So this type of, perfectly preserved brain geometry, it's for one thing, it's actually physical, right? And it's unfathomably complex. It's a network of connections where a single neuron might have thousands of simultaneous connections, maybe 8,000 connections going on at one time. And of course, there's more than one neuron, right? Remember, we have a magnificent brain. Around 80% of our brain is the cerebral cortex. And that's the smart stuff. The entire brain has about 120 billion neurons and a bunch of other, cells like glial cells. So the amount of physical connections, structural connections in the brain, is that a large number or is that a small number? Anyone? Well, it's estimated that there are at least 125 trillion synapses in the cerebral cortex alone. $125 trillion. What is that? That's 125 with 12 zeros after it. That many synapses, or little junctures where things can happen. This is an unconsciously large number of synapses, and each one is a junction where neurotransmitters can amplify or dampen long-range or short-range signals. It's extremely complex. Even just the structures, are incredibly complex, just the numbers. It's not even digestible, much less the effects of these incredibly complex structures. The complexity, the structure itself, that gives the user this incredibly useful human brain. So back to Nectome, the startup. The general idea is to exquisitely preserve a brain or a body, in a perfect statue, almost like it's in glass. So they completely capture all the living connections at a microscopic detail, via this embalming process. And so it's kind of like a physical backup of your mind, sort of. In the future, your brain will be scanned and then turned into a computer simulation, maybe. That's what they're claiming. So it's not meant to be the actual you coming back, but hopefully a close rendition. However, as we look at it, if you have the entire connectome, Wouldn't that be the perfect thing for AI to get in and start analyzing? Especially if you're trying to build an AI on a deep learning platform that is neural networks, you may as well give it the entire complete structural roadmap to kind of, at least for now, the pinnacle of, evolution in terms of brain structure and function. Yes? Anyway. So they want to just, preserve the brain in a state for hundreds of years where it can be brought back, and at least a representation can be brought back of you. But if you really do have a connectome, with the help of AI, maybe you can do better than that. We're not saying, but doesn't it sound great? Oh, what doesn't sound appealing yet? Oh, wait. Well, how about we change it up for you? Don't walk off just yet. How about this? For this to work, we'll have to kill you. That's right. For the very reasonable price of your own death, we can pump your still throbbing brain with our proprietary embalming chemicals, guaranteed to preserve your brain structure. And then down the road, someone can take a saw and cut sections of it and then scan it with an electron microscope and reanimate your entire brain, to study every connection, find out what was there. Hey, you remember when we tapped your carotid, right? Right. Yeah, you gave us consent. That is where we go in to pump you up. Yeah. We get that question all the time, but see, your brain has to be fresh. So we'll just need your signature here and here, and your consent here and here, just initials. Then we can hook you up to a heart-lung machine to make your brain as fully oxygenated and bathed in blood, whether you're still with us or not. Then we start pumping in the embalming fluid. Of course you'll be under anesthesia. What's that? What's that you say? Aren't we technically killing you? Oh, we don't want to look at it that way. That's just too negative all the way around. But it does remind us, you need to sign this release. Yes, it just means you acknowledge that you are engaging in doctor-assisted suicide and our service is 100% fatal to you. Just sign here and here and initial here and here. Very good. Great. So how would you like to take care of the $10,000 deposit? Oh, it just secures your place in line. It's filling up pretty quickly. We wouldn't delay if we were in your shoes. Oh, yeah. Nectome's process actually seems to work. It has been funded by research grants totaling over $1 million, and it recently won an $80,000 prize for preserving a pig's brain so well that every synapse could be seen with an electron microscope. Well, how did they do that? Well, their embalming process obviously works, but how did they view all of it with an electron microscope? Do you know how an electron microscope works? Well, the MIT article didn't say, but I'll tell you how they did it. They sectioned it into very, very thin slices to prep it for the electron microscope. They could have used a tunneling scope, in which cases the sections really do need to be just extraordinarily thin. Or they could be a little bit thicker, but they still need to be prepped with maybe a metal, and you could use it in a regular scanning electron microscope. In any event, scanning every neuron with an electron microscope, that they didn't do that. They just proved that they just sampled it. There's no way they did it all. Sorry, we digress. Jeez, it's just flying down the rabbit hole. Okay, so maybe that's how they actually plan to reconstruct an entire connectome by slicing it up, you know, that future glass brick of your brain. Could it be? It may very well be the way they catalog a connectome. Who knows? And if you have the whole thing, maybe that could be a basis for consciousness. We don't know. There's something else. But think of the data produced from just the model. If you can physically preserve the entire connectome of someone, all of the nerve connections, all the glial cells, all the synapses, all of it, all of the incredibly complicated, intricate networks, if you can have that much data, I mean, that's a small universe of data right there. What better scaffold would there be for deep learning platform than one directly designed to mimic the neural networks of an actual brain? AI could be used to catalog and find the patterns in the structural brain data. Whole theories could come out of that. One thing is for sure, as we pointed out several times now, as our tech gets smarter, we will be able to preserve ourselves, extend our lives, have an avatar, have multiple backups of our brains, many different options for the transhumanist in you who wants more than, 70 or 80 years here on Earth. The cryonics at Alcor, or the embalming at Nectome, they serve the same base desire to touch immortality. So what's up with the head transplant? Well, Canavero and Wren, those are the two neurosurgeons who've been researching this. They have claimed in the past that they would be ready by the end of 2017. It is obviously past that window, but just today, a serious neurosurgeon, James I. Ausman.
Okay, one option I see is anti-neurology on MedPark Drive.
What, does anyone know what the hell I do for a living? Okay. Unacceptable! Unacceptable! It's unacceptable. Where is my mind? Where was I going? My stream of consciousness has been severed. Head transplants, that's right. Excuse me. When times get rough, seems like things aren't going your way. If you can just get a little bit of fresh roasted, freshly ground, single origin, Nicaraguan light roast. Well, friend, everything's going to get a lot better. I don't think we really need that right now. All right, back to head. Neurosurgeons, Canavera Wren, they've been doing this research. James I. Alsman penned an editorial on why the time is now to move forward. First, a crude rundown of the basic protocol. Really, a head transplant is actually a body transplant. Valery Spiridonov is the prospective first patient, and his head is fine. He wants a new body, and if you've seen footage of him, you might understand why. So, simplistically, the team of 80 surgeons, I think it's something like 150 doctors and nurses. How do they even fit in there? I guess they don't go at the same time unless they're, partying. Okay, so these 80 surgeons will start by cooling Valery's, body, his head, and also the donor body and head. This prevents Valery's brain from undergoing stress and possible, brain damage that is associated with having your head cut off. Then they cut the skin around Valery's neck, exposing his muscles and blood vessels. The recipient body is prepped at the same time. All the muscles exposed and color coordinated so that after they're severed, they can be reattached to the right counterpart. The necks are further dissected, exposing the spinal column. The major blood vessels are severed and connected from the recipient head to the donor body. A diamond knife, extraordinarily sharp, effortlessly cleaves through the delicate nerves, leaving perfectly hewn ends. Valery's head is placed near the new body. The whole thing relies on speed and a clean cut. According to Canavero and Wren's research, if a fusogen is a molecule that can reconstitute the integrity of the neural membranes and the nerve fibers and restore electrophysiological conduction when applied to the cut spinal cord ends shortly after severance. Yes? Fusogen? So, if a fusogen, in this case it's polyethylene glycol, that's used for so many things in the lab, they probably just said, have you tried some polyethylene glycol? Just shove some of that up in there. It'll grow back. Anyway, so if you get that polyethylene glycol administered in under 10 minutes to freshly sliced nerves, then they can spontaneously make the necessary attachments over the course of a few days, according to their research. So, if you learned something new today, raise your hand. Did you know what a fusogen was? I didn't know what that was before today. Okay, so you get the cords fused in the sealant and, sew them back up and then leave them alone. The patient stays in a coma for about 6 weeks, letting the connections form in his head and body heal. It sounds crazy, but Dr. Alsman cites many examples in his editorial, all academically cited resources where both humans and animals have achieved nerve regeneration with the addition of these, like PEG and compounds like it. So several cases have been cited of this nerve regeneration in special cases. One example was a 24-year-old paraplegic with a transected spinal cord. So the ends of the spinal cord, so there's spinal cord going up and there's spinal cord going down, but in the middle there's a little gap. So they recut each end of the spinal cord, a very sharp knife apparently. And there was a 4-centimeter gap. That is not a small gap. 4 centimeters seems like an awful lot of gap to me. Maybe the article possibly transposed a C from an M. Maybe it should have been millimeters. I don't know, but it reports 4-centimeter gap. And then a collagen bridge was added. So this is the same principle of, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh yes. Almost had almost lost it there. So this collagen bridge inserted into the 4-centimeter gap, between spinal cord ends, demonstrates the fusogen concept. And she was moving her legs 6 months after the surgery and walking long distances 4 years after the surgery. So that's just one example in a special case, but it is a real case. So today, this renowned neurosurgeon calls for Canavero and Wren to proceed. They've been doing preliminary operations on cadavers, proving out their method. You may have seen all the fake news that said human head transplanted, that it had actually been done. Well, that was not on, a living patient. So they've been doing their preliminary operations on cadavers to get their protocols down. Anyway, there have been many examples proved out in animal testing, but we don't want to document those here tonight. Is this a quantum leap? We shall see. We imagine. What other operations might be possible if we can fuse severed spinal cords? I mean, there might be a number of reasons why you would want a new body. Maybe your body is riddled with cancer. Maybe your legs were lost in a train accident. Maybe you have some sort of spinal disease and you cannot walk. This could happen to anyone. None of us are immune. But to date, there is no therapy for some of these problems. There is no way to rehabilitate a completely broken body. So right now, we shall see if it is completed. We might have in the grasp of humanity the ability to transplant a human head. And if you can transplant a human head onto another body successfully, then why couldn't you transplant a human head onto a robot body or any other thing? It's just a matter of technology at that point. And our technology is nothing to sneeze at. Neither is this coffee. I mean, this is exactly the type of technology, the surgery tech. The first time we read about this is that it's impossible. You have to do it, you have to sever a head. We'll see if it comes out. It's still in our book, we have a proper amount of skepticism about things. We would still call this, a long shot. But we shall see. We think they're going to proceed, and we'll keep you updated if there's a timetable. Anyway, it's the type of advance you need to promote a future where we can merge with machines, if that's what you're into. The transhumanists should be very excited about the prospect of transplanting a human head. So, here tonight, 3 options available to us, basically right now, to prolong our existence. Kind of getting around it, sort of sidestepping the rules. We have cryonics, which, with the addition of working vitrification, they might be onto something now. Who's to say you can't reanimate vitrified organs? They've transplanted vitrified organs into animals successfully. So maybe you could save your future heart for your future cyborg self. Who knows? So the cryonics are important. Or you could just pump your brain full of embalming fluid, preserve every structural material detail of your physiology. Maybe the entire connectome. Maybe that really is the roadmap to consciousness. And if you could synthesize that in some way, that might be your... there's so much potential. It's hard to... you could speculate. We could speculate on that for the rest of the year. If we had an entire connectome, why not use it to give the perfect structural model for AI and deep learning to craft general intelligence? If they can learn our brain and learn how to mimic it, then they could scale it. With 125 trillion connections, the data from just one brain should be large enough to keep any AI program happy and keep it growing continually smarter. We can just design custom bodies. As long as we can trim back our spinal cords just a little bit, we can soak them in some PEG and connect our heads to kick butt cyborgs. Reach out into the darkness and ponder some of the possibilities. If you can have a perfect model of the human brain as the connections were still there during its sentient life, what can you do with that information? Could you create a database, not just the data from one brain, but the data from all brains? What kind of knowledge would we gain? What kind of predictive models? What kind of systems? What type of quantum computing will result from unlocking the secrets of 125 trillion connections? Maybe you could do better than just making a facsimile of someone's being. If you had all the structural information and an advanced AI, maybe at some point you really could bring back consciousness of a lost one. This is a very esoteric concept. Some other possibilities. Head transplants. If you can sever a spinal cord, who's to say you couldn't keep your brain cryogenically stored until medicine figures out how to cure your disease? At that point, they thaw you out, attach you to a new body, and off you go. Wish a buck was still silver. It was back when the country was strong. But is that putting too much of a burden on future generations? Well, yeah, we kind of want you to, clean up our trash. And, oh, by the way, I know you kind of want to do your thing during, your time on the planet, but we're going to be sending some people from our generation to join you. All you have to do is resuscitate them, warm them up, attach them into new bodies. They'll be good to go. They won't bother you at all. Cryogenic freezing, reanimation, severing spinal cords and fusing them back. These are the things that are happening now. This is incredible. Well, we promise we'll have some more fun tomorrow. We've been kind of serious the last 3 or 4 episodes. We'll have some fun for you. Maybe the amount of fun we have is directly proportional to the amount of people who watch, because I don't think there's very many. Let's just check. Let's take a look. See what's going on. Oh! Well, we are absolutely delighted to report to you that we have 3 people watching live. Isn't it a hoot? Oh, this makes us feel very warm inside indeed. Yes, we love it very much. We want you to subscribe if you haven't already. And again, viewership is low. We all know this. Share us with that one person you know might like this stuff. You may not know anyone who likes this stuff. In that case, you're off the hook. But if you know that 1 or 2 people, share us with them. We're here every night, Monday through Friday, 10 Central, on this very station or whatever it is. Reach out into the darkness. We're going to have some fun tomorrow. Reach out into the darkness. Yes, reach out into the darkness. Reach out into the darkness and grab onto your future. Will it be headless? Will it be headless? Will your brain live in the future? Reach out into the darkness. What will become of your brain? Will it be a model? A paperweight? Reach out into the darkness. Reach out into the darkness.